Hi, guys. It's Kathy. I hope you're doing well. So, yeah, my software now plays my intro and my outro for every video. So, it's going to be on these too. Guys, we made it to day 14. We're almost there. We're almost there. It feels like this is the cutoff. Like before was the beginning, and day 14 to 18 is the end, like the second half. Even though we hit the halfway point a while ago, this feels like we finally hit the halfway point. And we're going to get to the end of this trial and we can start the next trial. Oh man, the next trial is going to be so good. It's going to be long. So we're going to take our time and we're going to do it. We're not going to stress. We're just going to relax and enjoy. Y'all remember it, but none of you remember it. Y'all remember one part, two parts, but none of you remember it. The hardest part is I have to set up an intro for the next one. And wish I could just jump into the court. But I've been told I have to set up an intro for it, so I have to do that. Anyway, we made it to day 14, so we're going to jump in.
All right, we're back on the record in CR 2023-026 State versus Kelly. The record will show the presence of counsel and the defendant, and the jury is absent. I just want to put on the records for public consumption. The reason we're starting late this morning is that between the recess last week and this morning, two jurors sent notes to the court. The two jurors, who I won't identify, expressed concerns with their ability to continue to serve given what they anticipated the projected duration of the trial would be. They had some very serious legitimate concerns about continuing to serve in terms of their personal, business, financial, economic, and supervisory type responsibilities. So we met with counsel on the record and myself with each of the individual jurors this morning. We reviewed with them what their concerns were and what their issues were. We informed them about what the now projected duration of the trial will be. I told them, each of them, that if they could not serve because of personal reasons or economic, employment reasons, whatever, if it just was too much of a hardship, that we would agree to excuse them. But having discussed what we now...
I mean, seriously, I'm a server. If I don't work, I don't get paid. So, I mean, if you're in corporate and you get paid time to serve on a jury, that's fine. But some people live day to day, day to day, day to day, and they've been at this for weeks now. Weeks. I feel so bad for them.
believe is the projected duration and progress of the trial. Both of them thought it over and agreed to continue to serve. So that's why we're running a little late. That's what we did this morning. We still have 12 good jurors, and we're ready to proceed. And we can bring the jury in. Yes, sir. Can we take this? Detective Ains, as with any witness who appears and has a kind of a examination that's of longer duration, if you need a break, you let the court know.
Thank you. Please rise.
Everyone, please be seated. Good morning to all the jurors. Hope everyone had a nice weekend. It was finally beautiful. The weather was terrific this weekend. We're ready to proceed. The witnesses on the stand. The record will show the presence of all the jurors, counsel, and the defendant. And Ms. Lothorpe, whenever you are ready, you may continue with your cross-examination.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good morning, Detective.
Good morning, ma'am.
Let's back up a little bit and tell the jurors your function as a detective. How are you different from patrol?
So our function for patrol is we have more resources, more experience. So basically, when patrol takes an investigation and they run out of resources and they need us to come in, we don't take over. We assist with their investigation. It's more in-depth training than a patrol officer.
Okay, so that's the qualifications. Let's talk more about the job duties. So
Death.
you have patrol. They go to a scene of a crime. They're called out for whatever reason, or they observe something, correct?
That's correct, ma'am.
Okay. And then
I am not going to miss her questions when this is over. Nope, not even a little bit.
they take the initial reports. They, first of all, safety and all those things happen first, right?
That's correct, ma'am.
Okay. Assuming we're past that, everyone's safe. They collect statements, correct?
That's correct.
Any evidence at a scene, they protect the crime scene, correct?
That's correct, ma'am.
I mean, that's a very important role when there's been a shooting, is to protect the crime scene, correct?
That's correct, ma'am.
A robbery, it would be important to do the same thing, right?
That's correct, ma'am.
All right, because we want to preserve evidence, correct?
That's correct, ma'am.
Okay. And so it's important to separate witnesses so they don't have a chance to converse together and have their independent thinking, correct?
That's correct, ma'am.
All right. And a lot of times detectives are not at a scene, but they could be called there, correct?
That's correct, ma'am.
Okay. And that's just case by case, availability by availability, correct?
That's correct, ma'am.
But everyone that had a hand on it should put a report in along with the main officer that has the case, correct?
That's correct, ma'am.
All right. Now you get to, as a detective, get all that information, correct?
I try to get almost everything.
Well, and as a lead detective, you have your hand in observing everything, seeing what everyone said, what witnesses are out there, and then it's your job to start any follow-up that might be needed, correct?
That's correct.
All right, but you can't do that unless you observe everything that's been documented up to that point. Is that right?
That's correct.
All right, and I would think by now, being in all the court hearings that you've been in this case, and being on this case from almost the very beginning, not at the scene initially, but at the beginning, you are familiar with this case, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. I mean, you've heard it all about this case, and I'm sure you'll be glad when it's done, right? All right, you don't have to answer that.
We all going to answer that right now because that's finally a question that we are all 100% with you on. Yes. Yes, we're going to be glad when this is over.
So a case starts at a beginning. And the beginning in this case was a call on more than one occasion from, I'm going to call him Alan. You know him to be Alan too, right?
Yes.
Okay. Alan called Border Patrol on numerous occasions, correct?
That's correct, ma'am.
Okay. And the calls, other than the recorded voicemail, was not recorded, but statements were made. Is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
And where in the interview process, give me the order of who you interviewed as you started the beginning of working this case. Who's the first person you interviewed?
Well, I gathered information at the office from the sergeants on scene, both Sergeant Rodriguez and Sergeant Flores. Once I got to the scene right before Mr. Kelly and Mrs. Kelly were brought in, I made some other phone calls with Sergeant Flores, Sergeant Rodriguez, Agent Morcell.
And then who did you interview
Both
first?
Mr. Kelly and Mrs. Kelly.
In that order?
Yes.
Who else did you interview after that?
After that, the days follows. I interviewed Border Patrol Agent Marcel Heredia. I was part of the interview with Mr. Wisdom and Mr. Wise. In that order.
Okay. And then I know state did interviews later too, and that they became duplicative in what you've already done, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So we on Friday all heard the video recording of Alan's statement to you, correct?
That's correct, ma'am.
Okay. And you know from that interview, and you admitted on Friday that there was really no admission to committing a crime of murder to anybody, correct? He did not admit or confess.
He admitted to shooting.
Okay. But shooting doesn't necessarily mean it's a crime, does it?
Well, we have a dead body, ma'am.
Yes. But a lot of things are potentially out there to justify why we have a dead body, correct?
Ma'am,
But he didn't say, I killed him, did he?
no, he didn't. but
Okay. Now, matter of fact, we went through my whole dramatic thing that I did on there to show, and you admitted that it would make more sense to step out of the house and look to the threat, which was be to your right as you exit the house. And that would be where your focus would be. And that's where he claimed he shot above their heads, correct?
That's what he's telling me.
Yes. Okay. And we also know that if you believe, in your belief, you have no scientific evidence to support this, but it is your belief that that body died right there, right where it was found.
That's correct, ma'am.
And that's where he got shot. That's your statement.
Yes, ma'am.
Even though the medical examiner and the two ballistics experts have other theories that could have taken place. So that contradicts that as a fact. But it's just your belief. We'll give it to you as your belief, okay? Is that good? That is your belief.
Well, ma'am, we have a dead body with an injury. The trajectory is consistent with Mr. Kelly's residence.
It's not consistent with the aim that he took over the 5 subjects that ran across his window, is it?
I never believed he shot up, ma'am. He shot at them.
Okay. But it is not consistent with his statement, right?
It's not, ma'am.
Okay. And your belief is something for everyone to consider, but there's other alternatives to your belief. And I've been throwing a few at you, correct?
Well, my investigation, ma'am, what I investigated, what I saw, there is no other shot involved in this. The victim sustained a serious injury from a high-power rifle, an AK-47 rifle, with the trajectory directly from Mr. Kelly's residence.
Okay, so that also contradicts the ballistic experts of the type of gun. So you came into this investigation very focused on wanting to make this about Mr. Kelly being found guilty, isn't it true?
That is not true, ma'am.
Well, let's take a look at this, how everything unfolded, okay?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, because when we talk about alternatives and there's not a piece of evidence that supports just your theory, because that's what it is, it's a theory unless you have supporting evidence. Were you there at the scene?
No, I wasn't, ma'am.
Okay, so you're not an eyewitness to come up here and tell the jurors that your belief system is accurate, correct?
No,
It's-
it isn't. But Mr. Kelly made several phone calls, and throughout those phone calls, his story kept changing. It kept changing.
Okay. Let's talk about changing stories. All the three witnesses that were out there, besides I'm not talking about the deceased. There are three other witnesses and the jurors have only heard from one. But in your investigation, let's look at it from your investigation. Three witnesses had different versions. They were inconsistent statements, and I would love to know, what did you do to point the finger at them?
What witnesses, ma'am?
Well, you have DR, which names changed, but that's how I got to know him by.
Daniel. Gabriel.
Okay.
Okay. I was not part of any of those interviews whatsoever. I was never part of those interviews. You have Daniel, that he is a individual in a foreign country with a 6th grade education, lost, doesn't know where he's at. 10, 15 minutes later, he's being shot at. He's being shot at with an AK-47, a high-power rifle, and he starts running for his life.
Has it occurred to you that when you're doing illegal activities, that things can happen? So what makes them so innocent in this case?
What illegal activities, ma'am?
Well, how many times has he said he illegally has come across this border and been caught every time?
I don't remember how many times, ma'am.
A good handful, 6, 7 times, whatever we could all recall the testimony.
These are two unarmed men, ma'am,
Okay.
walking by a house, trying
What?
to get back home. Doesn't give them the right to them to be shot that they were shot at.
What's not right is the first shot was done while the Kellys were in their house, both of them. And it was reported immediately to Border Patrol. Go ahead, take your time.
Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
No, go.
You good?
Yeah.
It was reported to Border Patrol that a shot has been heard and men with guns are running across. So why are the Kellys automatically the liar in the case?
Man, there's a testimony where your client, Mr. Kelly, said that during that first phone call, he said he was informing Jeremy when he's being shot and he was inside his house. That is not possible. His first phone call to Mr. Marcel was outside the residence, and his direct words, "I'm being shot at, I'm shooting back." He cannot be shooting inside from his residence, man.
No, but his testimony was he went to the door while his wife got the card, called the number for him, and put Jeremy on the phone as he stood in the hall at the entrance or the exit of his doorway to the back patio, the east patio.
Yes, ma'am.
His testimony was he was standing there, passed the phone back, and that's when he went outside. It just works just fine. What's wrong with that?
That's not possible, man, because he's actually frantic on the phone call and stating, "I'm being shot at,
Yes.
I'm shooting back."
If you saw 5 people and you knew they had those kind of backpacks on, and you know from all the communications of living out there and talking to the Border Patrol liaisons and the people and the cases that are going on around with the neighbors and the text messages that he got leading up to this.
Ma'am, there's absolutely no evidence of 5 people at the property. Nothing was found, no bundles, no backpacks, no rifles.
Why would they drop it? Why would they drop a bundle?
Because that's what they do, man, to get away.
Not with the merchandise in it, they're not.
Everyone's different, ma'am.
That's right. And what if it was stolen?
There's
What if a RIP crew shot and one bullet made it to a person before my client steps out the door? We don't even account for that one shot. You don't even have the casing for that one shot. You don't even know what direction it was in. You don't know if they were at the back of the property, if they were in the arroyo that's right behind the property, which would account for the traveling bullet to go from lower to upper because of the elevation. You don't have anything to say that none of that happened. Isn't that correct?
So you're saying, ma'am, that a RIT crew was at the Kelly residence shooting at the victim? It's not possible, ma'am.
Why is that, sir?
The trajectory of the bullet came from Ms. Kelly. If that, your statement is true, ma'am, of RIT crew being at the Kelly's house, both Mr. Kelly and Mrs. Kelly wouldn't be here, ma'am. These
That's-
people are dangerous.
When you're
But
out
there
there,
is no,
they're dangerous.
nor is there evidence. There is no evidence of these people ever being at the property. No one exists. There's no 5 boogeymen out there. There is no,
Okay, let me
Right,
go
sir.
on one of your theories here. There's
Let the, I think
Okay.
you asked an open-ended question,
okay.
so let the witness answer the question.
I'll let him.
there is no bundles. There is no rifles. Nothing was found out there. Nothing. Nothing was found out there.
So isn't it a lot easier to take his big old tractor, dig a hole, and bury the body than call law enforcement all those times? Why would he do that?
Ask him that question yourself.
No,
ma'am.
I'm asking you, sir.
I'm not gonna speculate. or
Did you
guess.
see the big tractor out there on his
Yes, I
property?
did, man, but I'm not gonna speculate or guess on what your client, what might have
Okay.
done, or what he could have done, or what was he thinking.
Let's talk about the no bundles, no rifles, no evidence. Let's talk about that.
Yes, ma'am.
There are 3 other people that have fessed up to being there since the beginning of the investigation. Okay? Not only DRR, but Miguel and Ramon, 2 different other additional people that has not come to the courtroom. Okay? But they did go to law enforcement and they gave you their stories.
Not me.
They gave your department their stories. You got a sheriff interviewing one, and your new detective was with him, and then you have one more. I mean, they're all part of your staff, and you're the lead detective. So when I say y'all or you or whatever, you act as a group, correct, in this investigation.
That's correct. We work
Okay.
as a team.
Where is the proof that all 3 of these, DRR, Miguel, and Ramon, where's the proof that they were there? When the only thing you had was their admission to your department that they were. Where's the proof?
I did not partake, ma'am, in any of those interviews.
Sir,
But-
I'm speaking to you as the head detective, okay? Who knows everything about this case, who has been in every single hearing on this case. So let's not talk about that. Let's talk about your hand on the case and your knowledge, okay? Do you have proof? Because you say you have no proof of the backpacks and stuff. Do you have proof of the people that you try to put forward, including DRR, who testified that they were there?
Daniel said they were there.
And so did Mr. Kelly say what happened. So why is the testimony and no proof to support his story any better than the proof that you don't have on the other 3 that were there?
Objection argumentative, Your Honor.
Sustained.
Do you have proof that DRR was at the scene? Is there surveillance?
No, ma'am.
Okay. How do they escape the scene and not be under the camera?
I cannot testify as to how those cameras work, ma'am.
I didn't ask you to testify how they work.
Exactly. I don't know how they work.
So you have no proof to know, and with their inconsistent statements, their location of where the house was and which direction, and whether the horse died or didn't die, and which way he fell. The victim fell smack on his face is what we have, but he said he saw him fall backwards and watched his eyes roll back. How do you take these inconsistencies, and apply it to say, I'm going to disregard their inconsistencies, but I won't do it with Mr. Kelly?
Mr. Kelly, ma'am, again, changed his stories at least 5 times from the first phone call to the last phone call.
Let me tell you that DRR has also changed his stories every single time. There's been different facts added based on facts that's come out in hearings. Have you not noticed that? What are you looking at the state?
I'm not looking at the state.
Okay.
I'm trying to focus.
Okay, yes, sir.
Can you repeat it again, please?
Why is the changing of stories for DRR okay? He has added and changed some of his stories based on the way testimony has gone in different hearings.
I was here during DRR's testimony, ma'am.
And that was different from his very first time he testified.
We have to let the witness.
Oh,
answer-
yes, sir.
answer
Thank
the
you.
questions.
Apologize.
So I was here, ma'am, during DRR's testimony. Okay, I saw what he testified. If you want me to testify as to what's here in open court, ma'am, I will gladly do so, ma'am.
I just want you to say that you agree his story did change.
Objection, Your Honor. Improper impeachment of this witness with a different witness.
That objection's overruled.
Can you repeat it again, ma'am?
I'm just trying to get you to acknowledge that his story changed or grew since his very first time he gave a statement.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. And so that's my point. Why is Mr. Kelly, why is Alan's statement any less or more reliable than DRR who's changed it?
Objection, Your Honor. Argumentative.
Sustained. It's a good argument. It's for the jury to decide. You're welcome to argue that in closing argument, but it's argumentative.
But you're putting your belief that Mr. Kelly is the guilty one because he changed his story, and I'm just asking you to look at your investigation. Is your investigation without fault elsewhere with the other witnesses?
Ma'am, my investigation and my interviews with Mr. Kelly, that's what I determined. His stories were inconsistent from the beginning.
Well, let's talk why they were inconsistent from the beginning.
Yes, ma'am.
So after everything happened and the contact is made with Border Patrol, Marcel, a statement was made to your call center because Marcel called his supervisors, maybe one or two, we'll learn more about it maybe. And then one of the supervisors called the call center, not Jeremy. And we got an inconsistent statement conveyed to the call center. The statement, if you recall, was saying that Alan admitted to shooting, and that wasn't it. That's not the statement, was it? Are we there? We've all heard about it already. But this is where it started.
Yes.
And do you have water? You have what you
Good,
need?
ma'am. I'm good. Go ahead, ma'am.
Okay.
All right, hold on a second. Let's go on the headset. Could you bring that, Jose, could you bring that headset over to the witness?
All right, let's get through this quickly. I was listening to that. I was paying attention to that. Oh, I think it's a quick one. I try to look at this guy right here to find out when they take their headset off. It's hard to see. It doesn't look like he has one there. So no, it's a quick one. He doesn't have one there. Yep, they're done.
We're good to go. Thank you. Thank you. You can continue with your cross-examination.
So, thank you. We were talking about the inaccurate statement that Mr. Kelly admitted to shooting someone when that's not what he said, right?
That's correct.
Okay. And so everything starts from there. I'm sure you've read some of the officers in your department's statements, and some of them noted that they came into this call believing that Mr. Kelly already admitted to shooting him, correct?
Believe so.
Yeah. I mean, for them to note it is confirmation that they heard dispatch, the call center somehow communicate to them that the suspect has admitted to shooting. So Now we got everyone in the mindset that the homeowner, the rancher, said that he had struck this person that is now laying dead in his property. That sure sets the tone for the investigation. Would you agree?
Are you reading off the dispatch logs, man?
Not reading yet off of anything, just going on recall.
Okay, so can you repeat the question for me again?
Yes, sir. So the tone has been set by dispatch conveying inaccurate information that she must, had received from a supervisor at the Border Patrol.
Yes.
Okay. That sets the tone to what everyone is doing and how they're handling it. Wouldn't you agree?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And the real statement was something may have been struck earlier. Correct?
I believe so, yes.
And so it was not a confession. And it makes sense when you know about both earlier call and later call, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. I mean, think about it. Giving him the benefit of doubt for a second. The police, law enforcement, sheriffs, Border Patrol had walked around a lot of their property and walked around the location where the bodies later found. So there's a presumption. When was that body there? Was it there the whole time and law enforcement missed it? That could be one thought, right?
Yes, ma'am, but you gotta understand too, during this time, the first contact with Mr. Kelly, he omitted ever shooting his AK-47. He never mentioned to anyone about that AK-47, which is a very important fact in this case. Actually, he didn't even admit to me
Okay.
30 minutes into our interview.
Okay, so I know that wasn't part of my question. That was non-responsive to my question, but I'm going to stop you there on your point, okay?
Yeah, ma'am.
Rather than trying to get you to not include that statement, I'm going to address your statement. Who is trained in interviewing?
All of us, ma'am, we all get trained. in
Law
interview.
enforcement, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Can I ask you, wasn't him calling and telling him a shot was heard and I'm going out to shoot, wasn't that an admission of what he might have to do to defend himself? Did he not tell someone?
Yes.
Okay. Now, going from there, every police officer that walks in the door is not giving a full sit down and tell me every single thing that happened. Because if they did, why didn't they do a walkthrough and say, show me?
I was not there, ma'am.
You weren't.
I did not partake. Whatever these officers did, ma'am, I can't control what they did. Trust, if I would have been there, I would have walked. I would have
So
stood.
why was the hurry to arrest someone without any evidence? Why didn't you say, let's go back to the scene and I want you to show me what happened with you? Or the trained sergeant that was there, who is a supervisor to you, correct?
Yes,
Sergeants outrank a detective, correct?
that's correct.
Okay. Why didn't they bother to say, Mr. Kelly, show me what happened. Take me through it.
I can't answer that question, ma'am. I don't
Well,
know why they didn't do that.
They keep saying they arrested him with no evidence. Dude, there was a dead body. That's evidence.
don't know.
That's a poor investigation that not only it didn't happen at the time, but it didn't happen once you took over.
His stories changed, man, when I did his interview more than one time.
Well, it sure helps when someone gives you a visual and say, come, let me show you. I walked out this door. I already heard a shot. I was in the kitchen, just like everyone got to see the scene here. The jurors got to go out there. Started from the beginning, the kitchen, the view outside. Could someone see something more than that? Is it possible they saw 5 people? Is it possible that Wanda could have just saw 2 and heard her husband say there were 5?
Possible, man, but there's
Okay, but the walkthrough would be helpful. What did you do when you stepped out? Where were you when you stepped out? How did you hold your rifle when you stepped out? At least give him a chance to explain his story since he was being so cooperative with you. Isn't that true? You could have done that.
I could have done that, ma'am. Yes,
Okay.
I could. I agree with you.
Okay, thank you for that. Now, when it's clear that the way he stood later reflects the casings, maybe you all would have found the casings a lot sooner if you know where he was standing. True?
That's correct.
Okay.
Yes.
So, and if the position makes sense, then you could test that position. But your positioning of the casings is well, let's just say if they're accurately placed on the ground for your photos. And we know where a dead body is. That's a gimme too. I mean, that's a defined location. But what we don't have is where Mr. Kelly was standing when he shot. And all you had to do was say, show me any one of your department to see if it makes sense with the evidence. He wouldn't have known better. You know, you let them talk until they, until they're done talking and see if it squares up or not. But no one did that, correct?
That's correct, ma'am.
Okay. And unfortunately for you and the rest of the department and the what I call the telephone mishap, which means when you were young and you told a secret and told another person, it gets changed. The stories get changed, right?
Yes, ma'am.
And unfortunately, we'll figure out later how that might have happened, but it did. And so now, unfairly to your department, you all are out there with almost blinded to the fact that he confessed. So isn't it true? It could affect your investigation.
Oh, ma'am.
Okay, let's go on with how things don't get conveyed correctly. We were looking to the arrest booking form. I'm going to repost it. It's already been admitted. It states 2. May I, Judge?
Yes.
It's kind of where we
No,
were.
I'm
on
sorry,
Friday.
but no, I can't get there. I can't get to where she is from what she's saying, from the questions that she's asking, because it's not like whisper down the lane with police officers. It's not like you make a call to 911 and then by the time the regular police officer gets to your house, it's a murder investigation. Like you call 911 and you say someone broke my car window. A police officer doesn't show up to your house with a story so mangled that they think that they need SWAT. It's still a broken window. Uh, it didn't get that twisted. I believe what the police officer said happened. I believe he said, I'm being shot at and I'm shooting back. I believe it because they're trained. That's what they're trained for. Do people make mistakes? Absolutely. I'm not saying that the police are some, magical creatures that are always right and never wrong and they can't make a mistake. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying I can't get to where she is on these questions. Nope. My brain, nope, won't go there.
I don't think that thing's on. I don't see a light. There you go. All right.
So, in a previous hearing, you denied doing this, but ultimately you realized you did do this narrative. You wrote that narrative, correct?
Yes, after Ms. Larkin presented this during our original PH. I did ownership. I did a teller, but I was not lying about it. I completely forgot about me assisting our sergeants, filling out the narratives during this portion of the booking form. Not only was I taking phone calls, typing up a search warrant, and multiple things, and I completely forgot that I did the narratives. There was no lie. I did not misinterpret this booking form at all. I took responsibility for not realizing that I did the narrative. It wasn't a lie. It was not done intentional. And I took responsibility for that to Ms. Larkin during her PH.
Okay, so I think what you're saying is you're admitting that you misrepresented writing this, but later
No, ma'am,
changed it.
I didn't say that. I said I did not misrepresent this booking form at all. I just completely forgot that I I requested assistance from the sergeants to book them in while I did everything else. I was finish up the interviews. I was preparing evidence to go out to the scene. I was, finishing up, preparing the search warrant on the phone with a judge to get the search warrant granted. I did not lie or intentionally say that I didn't do this. I
Okay.
owned up to it, and I told Ms. Larkin that I owned up to it. I did not lie about it.
Well, let's just, even though that was under sworn testimony in a hearing,
Yes, I understand that.
okay, and you were under oath, and then ultimately you realized you did,
Yes, ma'am.
and now you're saying, you're admitting that you wrote this part.
The narrative part, ma'am. Yes.
Yes, okay. Now, my problem with this is that you've already interviewed Mr. Kelly at this time, correct?
Yes, this was after the interview.
Okay. So the first part I have a problem is that you said he was chasing undocumented foreign nationals. Okay. He never said he was chasing them. Okay. And you weren't there to see him chasing. And so even though you heard that he wasn't chasing them, he did head out towards his barn. He did observe that he had no signs of them through the Aurora, believe that that's might have been their escape route. And he passed that location because we know that was true because he was found up there by the water pump, which is just off of the barn.
That's good.
Okay.
That's correct.
All right. Now you got men running around with guns in his version.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And he has property.
Yes, ma'am.
He has cows.
Yes, ma'am.
And they need to stay in his property. And so people on his property could very well have cut his fence line, correct?
That's what he's testified to.
And-
Told me to.
Yeah,
Fence.
and that happens quite a bit. The Border Patrol comes back and tries to help them out and fix their fence lines and stuff with it, right?
When it's Border Patrol, they actually cuts the fence, yeah.
Well, I think they're very gracious. But he has a right to observe what's going on his property, correct?
Of course, man, it's property.
And he has a right to be armed in the great state of Arizona, correct?
That's 100% correct, man.
Okay. And, but there's nowhere that he told you he was chasing them. He didn't say that, correct? It's just a yes or no.
No, man.
No, he didn't, or no, he did.
No, he didn't tell me about chasing. When
Okay.
speaking to Marcel, he said he
All
was
right.
walking towards them.
And then you said Mr. Kelly was interviewed and admitted to shooting at, I'll let you read the rest of the sentence. Make sure I get your writing correct. Last line, was shooting at
Shooting at, I believe, with male subjects.
male subjects. Okay. Well, yes, he did admit to raising his gun in the air to scare him away. He took a chance that he could have been killed, assuming that the person pointed a gun at him, and you admitted you wouldn't have done that. You would have shot him, right?
That's correct, man.
Okay. And then what's the rest of the sentence say? The next sentence, last one.
A deceased male subject was discovered on his property.
Okay. So even though it's sort of true that he admitted to shooting his gun at over male subjects, you didn't write over male subjects, correct?
Yes.
You made this sound like an admission of guilt when he didn't give you that. And yet you started the storyline after it already being misrepresented by the Border Patrol, who conveyed it through the dispatch. But now, and you all heard that, but now had a chance to interview him, and he's never admitted and denied telling Jeremy that. Now, isn't that true so far?
Yes, ma'am.
Now, Jeremy, you interviewed before or after you wrote this?
I interviewed him. Actually, I talked to him before, and before I did, then I interviewed him at a later date.
So you know his statement was different than what was conveyed, that something may have been struck earlier was the only statement that Jeremy actually noted and put in his police reports too, correct?
That's after the fact when I interviewed him, when he presented me those. But when the initial phone call, he told me he had struck something.
No, come on. So now Agent Marcel is lying on the stand to these
No,
jurors?
ma'am. No.
Okay. I mean, he was very forthright.
Yes, ma'am.
He cooperated with you as a different agency.
Yes, ma'am.
He provided you his report at some point in time. You know, you have a means of correcting something and making a report to reflect the corrections. I've seen some coming from your department, correct? How do you make a correction to something?
Like on a report,
Yes.
before, you want me to explain how we do the corrections?
Yeah,
on reports?
if there's just a random correction that needs to be made,
So in CID, in our criminal detectives, we do everything on Word before it's submitted into Spillman. Once we correct it, we download it into Spillman, which is the actual reports you were provided with.
and what do you call those corrected reports?
Just corrections, man.
Okay, so it's like a supplement.
Well, there's the main reports and then there's supplements. In this case, I think I've done over 30 supplemental reports
Okay.
in this case myself.
And what about corrected reports? You call them the same thing?
We do supplemental reports. We document that on this supplement, I just noted this and I discovered it was wrong. So this is another supplement correcting this. We
Thank
don't
you.
go back and correct it. We do another supplement.
Okay, good. That's where I was leading to. You don't change what was, or even though there's a mistake on a report, you supplement and show the correction through that additional report, correct?
Yes, that's how we've been trained. And
Did you ever do a supplemental report stating what Mr. Kelly really did say? Something may have been struck earlier?
it's on the interview with Mr. Marcel.
No, but did you and your sheriff's department, because there's a lot of contradictory statements that he confessed. So all the officers heard it and made a note of it. A lot of them made a note of it in their report.
So you're asking me if I did another report regarding that? No,
Yes,
ma'am, I
sir.
didn't.
Okay. So we get this report. When you get a warrant, a search warrant, for example,
What's that?
when you get a search warrant,
Yes, ma'am.
how do you go about getting it?
We get a probable cause statement.
Okay.
It's called an affidavit of probable cause statement.
And what is an affidavit?
It's a document that you document what you're looking for, the facts, and everything you gather to submit it for the actual search warrant.
An affidavit is a sworn statement, correct?
That's correct, ma'am.
Do you literally raise your hand before someone and swear that this information you're providing is truthful?
Both in person or in telephone, we still raise our hand.
Okay. So if you went to Judge Fink and said, sir, I need a search warrant, which you guys have done on this case, correct?
Yeah, we've done plenty of search warrants.
Okay. And you raised your hand if you were in person or the other way, if you were doing it by some other telephonic means, you are swearing the information is truthful, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Now, with the the actual warrant to be signed by the judge to allow you to do the search, usually the affidavit is accompanied by it so the judge can read your probable cause basis, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
She had me totally into it for a while, and now she's losing me quick. Come on, fight with him more.
Now, I'm going to show you some stuff for you to look over. I picked one of your search warrants, and I believe this is your AT&T search warrant, okay? And I'm going to just let you review it first. I haven't marked it. I'll go ahead and get it marked, okay? Ma'am.
Do you have a sub number, counsel?
Yeah. I'm going to show it to the state first. As you go through your affidavit, I did obviously highlight a few things. I'll let you just review it and just let me know when you're ready.
Ms. Lorthorpe, I remember this document.
Thank you, sir. Let me know if you need it back.
I probably will, ma'am. I did a lot of supplements on this case.
You did a lot of search warrants and different things, and I know, so, but I'm going to bring your attention to your affidavit because that was your sworn statement, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And what does the word affiant mean? Help me-
Affiant. Me.
Huh?
Affiant. Me.
Okay, okay, go ahead. What does it mean?
It's me,
Me,
the person
being the
sworn.
Thank you. Sorry to cut you off. Okay, so you told in your affidavit, you said you then informed George, Mr. Kelly, of the statement he provided to USBP agents, where he informed USBP agents that he needed for them and the sheriff's office to respond due to him striking something. Okay, and you're portraying that statement in your sworn statement to go get a search warrant.
That's what I document.
You also above that said that you call it affiant. I'll call it the way you call it. Okay.
It's me.
It's fine. So you, detective, learned from George that he heard what he believed to be a gunshot and began running after the male subjects. He didn't tell you that, did he?
It was Agent Morcell.
Well, you said you heard from George. You wrote to the judge in your statement to get this search warrant that you learned from George. You didn't say Agent Marcel.
I understand what you said, ma'am.
Okay,
That's true.
thank you. And on another page, that in this paragraph, at the end of this paragraph, you then learned from Agent Marcel that he had made contact with George at about 1735 hours and proceeded to tell him that he needed for him to respond along with the sheriff deputies because he had struck something. Okay? He never said he struck anything. He's shooting in the air. So, once again, even if that indirectly came from Marcel in your belief because of the mess up through the call center, you now know the truth that that's not what Marcel said. Correct?
That's correct.
And this affidavit, a search warrant, was signed by the Honorable Cartwright on the 7th day of June of 2023 at 13:17 hours.
I saw that, ma'am. Yes.
Okay. You know the story by now, and yet the story keeps going on and getting misrepresented. Correct?
That's what I documented.
Thank you. And we kind of heard a little bit more about the medical examiner getting information about the case, which the narrative for the medical examiner wasn't accurate. Correct?
That's
And you
true.
didn't write it, though.
You're talking about the OME report?
Yes. The narrative on the ME's report.
I had nothing, I didn't partake on the OME filling out the form.
No. But when you are the lead investigator, detective on the case, and you see inaccurate information, you could supplement and stop that information. But you didn't, did you?
Because I wasn't there, ma'am. I never saw the OME form and did not partake anything with the body until I attended the autopsy. I never saw that OME form.
I know.
Usually on all my cases, when not them prior ones, I take full responsibility of the OME because I know how important that form is. But I did not partake in this. I didn't see the OME form. I didn't see who wrote the OME form. I was not there.
So we get a medical examiner form, and I'm holding up AAA defense evidence. And in it, there was a narrative that the medical examiner relied on and I'm going to refresh the location of this to you and show you this piece of evidence.
Sorry. This one?
Yes, sir.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and review it and tell me, is that completely the truth as to what we know now?
Like I said, ma'am, I was here, I heard it, I'm reading it right now. I didn't have nothing to do with this narrative.
Okay.
I didn't
But
write
you
it.
didn't fix it.
This already been submitted by the time I got to it. So whenever the coroner picks up the body, the OME goes with the body. So I didn't partake in none of that. So
So this false narrative continues. And unfortunately, it could have been conveyed down to all the other experts. Isn't that possible?
possible.
And when people go into a situation believing a certain thing has happened, that could affect them too on how they set up their expertise, whether it's ballistics or DNA or whatever, right?
Yes, ma'am.
So in this narrative, we have once again the homeowner indicated that the group was running parallel at the property and had long rifles on their possession. That part fits Mr. Kelly's story, correct?
Yes.
He then allegedly pursued the group and engaged them. Well, I don't know about pursuing it, but let's give that a benefit of the doubt for a second. Firing one shot from his AK-47. That's not true. That's the one shot that he heard before he exited his house. So the information isn't accurate, right?
I did not write that, ma'am.
I understand. Your in-training detective gave this narrative, correct?
I don't know. I wasn't there when he gave it.
But Detective Barbos is responsible. His name is on here, that the form completed by Deputy Barba.
I can't remember what his testimony was regarding this, man, but I don't know. I don't know if he actually wrote it or if his name is on there. It's on there then.
Well, it just says additional information was obtained via by PCOME. What's that?
PCOME, Pima County Office of Medical.
Yeah. Preliminary death form completed by Deputy Barba.
Okay, so it must have been him then.
So there was something completed, some form that they use internally, maybe at the medical examiner's office, right? Sounds like it.
It sounds like it.
Yes.
We have our own form that we submit with the body.
Okay. Where's that form?
We have it, it's provided by the OME. We have it on our shared server in our computers. So whenever the regular OME form, when a body dies, it's an OME form. So that form is filled out by, anyone can fill the form in the law enforcement, whoever's there is on scene. It's just an OME, generic OME form provided by Pima County Office. It was provided, I've been filling that form out my 17 years. So it's in a shared server, hasn't changed. Some deputies like to write it in, some deputies like to type it in. As soon as the OME picks up, or the funeral home here in our county picks up the body, that form goes with them. Then it's faxed to the OME too, because they won't take the body without that form. So I don't know if you have that form. That form, we could tell you exactly who filled that, the OME form.
Have you seen it?
I haven't seen it, man. Like I said, I didn't partake in any of that. The only time I made contact with the body was at the autopsy. That's the first time I made contact with the body.
Well, if you have a detective that's still waiting to go to detective school and can't take this case on its own because he hasn't had all the proper training yet, that means he's under your wing, I would assume, for guidance on how to handle this case. Is that right?
Yes, ma'am. But like I said, if you have that form, I can tell you exactly who filled that OME form.
I don't think I have it. So I don't know.
So like I said, it's an OME form. So if I see that form, because we put our initials on there, whoever filled out the form. So I don't know when or where did Detective Barba fill this form out. I need to see that form. I don't have it in front of me.
So, and I don't believe I have it. Maybe
Didn't she ask Detective Barba all this? He can't answer questions about something he didn't do.
the state's looking for it, but that's up to them whether they are or not. But I don't have it. But this investigator narrative was in the middle of the medical examiner form or report. And this is their full report because it includes all their findings, photos, and everything. And this paragraph is nestled right in the middle of their forms in their report, okay?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. And they identified Deputy Barba as supplying it. I guess my concern is, I mean, you can't be everywhere 24/7, but where does this stop with this story?
I don't know, man. Like I said, if you have that form, I can put some light into this issue regarding this narrative on the OME form too.
Well, maybe if you had sent out a supplemental narrative and said that part wasn't true, maybe others would get a copy of it and see it. I'm just saying is just the actions that are being taken by different parts of your department are still going on the presumption that he confessed and chased these people down. So here we have an investigation that's been slanted because of this false information from the beginning. Is that possible?
No, ma'am.
Okay. Let's look at all the evidence
Can't get
that
there
you
when
have
I
worked
can't.
on to show and support or not support your version of the case. Okay? We have,
No, it's not his version of the case. As things unfolded, as calls were coming in from Mr. Kelly, he didn't call the sheriff's department. He called Border Patrol. So Border Patrol then called, the sheriffs. But as the information is coming in, they're conveying it as it comes in. As they get it, they're conveying it to whoever needs to hear it. It's it's a murder investigation. So yeah, they learn more as they investigate. I mean, and things that they might have thought at the beginning isn't true. They don't know at the beginning what's true and what's false. That's why it's an investigation.
you guys doing DNA, correct?
Yes.
And if I recall right from testimony, all of the evidence, all of Mr. Kelly's clothing that was selected, no DNA was found on it that would have been the victims. Okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And matter of fact, you didn't put him in the right clothing. He had I believe you said the outer layer was a blue shirt, but he had a sweatshirt on and a vest that was out over the blue shirt. So just so it doesn't confuse the jurors. Do you remember that clothing now?
I do remember the clothing, ma'am.
Okay. Do you remember a let's see here. The vest, I believe, was
It was a
under his
puffer vest.
jacket.
It
Huh?
was a puffer vest. I think
Yes.
I
And
think
what color was that? Do you remember?
I don't remember, ma'am.
Your Honor, just for clarification, we're referring to the defendant.
Yes. Is defense GG admitted yet?
So GG was not admitted, but the court did order it to be in the court file. Oh, wait, GG? I was reading off of GG today, I apologize. That has not been.
Thank you. I'll tender this defense GG to the state to review. And I will show the witness.
There's going to be no objection, Your Honor, if she moves to admit.
There's a jury that's.
You need a break?
No.
Okay.
You'll just read my note.
Okay, hold on one second. I'm sorry, I didn't see it before.
You can use this one, ma'am.
Okay. Let's see what they're talking about. Let's see what they're fighting about now. Oh, it's a short one again. Wait. I can't tell. Good enough.
I'll get it. I'll be up there in a minute. Can you identify these photos that has been marked as Defense GG?
Yes, ma'am. Those are Mr. Kelly's wardrobe.
Okay, and there's 1, 2, 3, 4, I believe. 4 photos of this in this exhibit,
Yes, ma'am.
and they all accurately depict his clothing upon arrest and taking his clothing.
Yes. Can I see him again, ma'am? Just real quick. As far as I can remember, yes, ma'am.
Okay. I'd like to enter into evidence Defense GG.
No objection.
Permission to publish?
Excuse me, GG is admitted, yes.
Okay, I'm gonna start with the third photo. It's, Okay, so this is Mr. Kelly's jeans, correct?
That's correct.
And his boots.
Yes, ma'am.
And this appears to be that blue shirt that you mentioned was the that you agreed with the state that it was the outer layer clothing, correct?
I believe so, yes, ma'am.
Stay with it,
But
guys. I'm
in
sure it's going to be good.
He had on both this sweatshirt and this vest on him also, correct?
Yes, ma'am. I believe so.
And that did cover up the blue shirt, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
I just want to bring correction, just to polish the rest for everyone to see what's there. You can see undergarments, watch, the gloves. Was that found or carried in like his back pocket?
I can't remember when he came in where he had them on, ma'am.
He wasn't wearing them, was he?
I don't believe so.
And this is, that last one was the first photo. This is the second photo. We saw the third. I'm gonna go to the fourth. At this point in time, I'm assuming he's in jail clothes, correct?
I believe so.
All right, sounds like you're moving into another area. We'll take our mid-morning recess. We started a little late this morning, so I'm going to keep the recess to 15 minutes. About 10 o'clock, we'll be back at 10:15. I'll excuse the jury, and I'll stay here with counsel.
We rise before.
All right, the jury's absent. You can be seated. Counsel, when we were in chambers this morning and we met with the two jurors and discussed with them their issues concerning continuing to serve on this jury, and then we discussed for time management purposes how much time remained. I just want to make sure.
I'm sorry, Judge. Were you not here this whole morning? Of course, it's going to go longer than we think. Did you hear any of the questions she just asked? That was a humongous waste of time.
For time management purposes, counsel, do you still anticipate being with this witness consistent with the estimate you gave us this morning?
Yes, my estimate was the morning, and
Right.
I feel like we're not there yet. So
No, we aren't. And I'm just checking just to make sure we're still on track. Just checking for time management purposes to make sure we're still on the estimation that we gave to the jurors.
I'm trying to be as considerate as possible, considering he had the issue that was brought to us. And so I am moving quickly through everything.
All right, you do what you need to do. I'm just trying to keep track of the time for my own purposes. All right? Very well. We'll be in recess until 10.
Objection, lies. She is not moving along quickly. But I can. Ha ha. Actually, you know what I could do? I could make this in double speed. And it's okay, because if you don't like it in double speed, you can just turn it back to regular speed. You have the power. It's your
Please
computer.
have a seat.
I just feel like it's just not the same with his testimony today. Because yes, he's sniffling, but barely. Not like yesterday's, or day 13, I should say. I need the sniffling back.
All right. You can bring it, Jerry.
Please rise.
Please be seated. The record show the presence of all the jurors, counsel, and the defendant. The witness is on the stand. Counsel, you can continue with your cross-examination.
Okay, I believe. I need to turn my speaker off. That we left off starting to talk about DNA. And we determined that there was no DNA, including the defendant's gloves. What else was tested? Do you recall off the top of your head?
I don't recall, ma'am. I'd look to
Okay.
see the report if possible, but I don't
Okay.
recall.
The glove
There
is always
was
a problem.
nothing supporting any DNA, like any blood or any DNA from the victim on the defendant, on Allen. And then they checked the clothing.
Wanda, you're late. You're late, Wanda.
On the Gabriel, the victim, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And the backpack just seems to be excluded from all testing on the case. But we did have a patch from his jacket that was taken away from any blood on the jacket. And there appeared to be a possible second contributor, but couldn't determine who, correct? Did you hear that part?
Yes, ma'am. I remember.
Why didn't you collect some of the other DNA from and voluntarily ask if, DRR would have given some of his DNA since he put himself at the scene?
I have no answer for that, ma'am.
Well, if he fought you heavily, maybe he has a different role at the scene if he was there. I mean, what if he took the items and he's trying to point the finger at Allen so he's not in trouble with whoever supplied him with these items?
What items, ma'am?
Well, illegal things that would be leading to money.
Well, there is no evidence of anything like that found on the property, ma'am. No backpacks, no
Okay.
bundles.
Would you leave a gun behind? Or as a suspect, would you, if you're stealing, guns have value, correct? Guns get stolen, correct?
Yeah, they get stolen.
And they have value, right?
Yes, ma'am.
And did you, I don't know if you know this or not, but it's a crime to bring guns from America into Mexico.
Is it illegal
Yes,
to export firearms from the U.S. to Mexico?
yes.
Yes, it is.
Okay. So why would you show it? Why would you leave it if it has value, right? These are things you had to think about, correct?
It's a lot of circumstances to that, ma'am, if why it wasn't or left behind or taken.
Okay. Now let's say in that fanny pack where half of it is empty is a lot of money for transporting someone over to America. Like $2,500 in 20s or hundreds or whatever. But that wad sits in the fanny pack. Do you think if you were stealing from someone that you would leave that behind?
You're asking me to guess on that, ma'am, so I don't know if there was money or not, but I'm not going to guess on that.
But you are a detective that can handle a robbery case too, aren't you?
Robbery case?
Yes.
I've taken robbery cases.
Okay. And these are questions that you would say or could have said are unanswered. Let me explore it in my investigation. Isn't that possible?
Yeah, ma'am, but there's no absolute evidence of a struggle or a robbery that ensued where that backpack and fanny pack were found.
Sir, you talked about no evidence of a struggle. We got a dead man, correct?
With a shot.
And SS admitted? Defense?
Yes.
Thank you. Permission to republish?
Yes.
To me, I don't want to know to you, does this picture not cry out some sort of foul play?
What foul play, ma'am? It's a dead body facing down.
Let's take a look at that backpack, sir.
Yes, ma'am?
Backpack, you could fall down 300 times and it'll stay on your back. This backpack is pulled up over his head, it's unzipped, and a fanny pack lies on the side where it's not normally carried. Does that not cry out foul play, possible robbery?
No, ma'am.
What about the fact that
That's valid.
the buckle was broken? So, since we've seen
Not
photos
valid. Nope.
that Gabriel has been seen with a fanny pack across his chest. Do you remember that photo?
I vaguely remember it, yes.
It was about a week before,
Yes, ma'am.
shortly before this incident,
Yes, ma'am.
okay? You put your most valuables possibly in there, possible, right?
Possible?
Okay? So money, drugs, things that might have value, ID, whatever might be in that bag, correct?
Possible?
Now, assuming for a second it's still there when this happens, assuming that someone pulled it from underneath him, like he's laying flat down like we found him, and the strap, sir, goes across the chest where the wound is, collecting some blood, which we saw the photo, the fanny pack on the strap had blood. Do you remember that?
I believe so, yes.
Okay. So if you pull it across the wound and you collected a little blood, unzipped it like it was spent, and look inside of it, and half of the contents is gone, it appears. Isn't that a possible? And this is,
Whoa, 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 whoa. Does it appear that half the contents is gone? Did we hear that? Did we see that?
SS. It's a minute, correct? Seems kind of weird that whatever this item is the
It's-
only thing that's in this area.
Objection or argumentative.
Overall,
Does it not seem a little strange to you that something could be missing from this pouch?
No strange at all, ma'am. We don't know what he had in there. All I found was food.
But sir, a good detective is going to look at these clothes and see where they might take you. And I want to know, did you allow this to take you anywhere to possibly investigate? Did you ask for DNA from DRR?
No, ma'am, I didn't ask any DNA from DR.
So DNA is not conclusive in any way to show Alan's guilt, correct? Are we in agreement with that?
Yes, ma'am.
Let's look at fingerprints, sir.
Yes, ma'am.
Did fingerprints reveal anything that would show Alan's guilt in this case?
There's no fingerprints found.
Okay, so the answer is no, correct?
That's correct.
Let's talk about gunshot residue. Again, I made a point earlier with that testimony to show the biggest area on the back, and since this is the side and the back of the entrance, the biggest area was covered by a backpack and it wasn't tested, correct?
The backpack wasn't tested.
Right. Instead, we did the shirt, I believe, that, or the jacket, I mean, underneath the backpack, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. So, was there any evidence, one way or the other, of the gunshot residue? How long did it take you to run that test before you did?
I wasn't a part of that, ma'am.
But it was, I mean, to initiate, to get an expert, when was that inquired? 6 months later? A few months later?
I would like to see the report. I didn't take part of that. That was Detective Barber that assisted me with the gunshot residue test kit, if you would call it. I don't remember.
Yeah, but you're the lead detective. I'm going to keep reminding you of that, correct?
I understand that
Okay.
clearly, ma'am.
And he was learning, and he probably was going through you with your approval on that, correct?
This was requested by the county attorney's office, ma'am, but like I said, he assisted me in a lot of things which I wasn't there with him. Detective Barba, his years on patrol, he's a real good cop, a real good detective. He's still learning. Yes, he is, but I didn't partake in that, so.
No, but your teachings is helping to make him hopefully a better detective, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, how to handle a murder case. You've had one but at least before, correct?
That's correct, ma'am.
And he really hasn't been a detective on any case at this point in time because he was in training, correct?
That's correct, ma'am.
Okay. So your guidance on what to do in the case would come from you, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
You're running with this investigation now.
Yes,
Correct?
ma'am. You're correct.
You might have higher powers, but it's your baby. It's your case.
That's correct.
Okay. And the results of it will come through you. You will take the time to look at it because that you know everything about this case. You know what's happened on this case, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And that's the job of a lead detective, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So there's that let's see if I can find it real quick. That mystery tree. The tree that was located with a broken branch with animal hair below it, right?
Yes, ma'am.
And so initially, no one thought much of it. But we did hear a little testimony that maybe someone suggested you check on it. But we're half a year later, correct?
I believe so, yes.
All right, I've selected a few of the photos taken in relationship to the tree that was tested a half a year later. Can you identify all these photos?
I wasn't there when these were taken.
I think I need to mark them. Sorry, no, they're marked. This would be Defense UU. But you've seen this.
Briefly, yes.
Okay. And so can you identify that as just trying to go back to the tree and get some photos and collect it, and then it was sent off for testing, correct?
That's what the picture's depicting, but like I said, I wasn't there.
I understand. I'm going to ask you a question about it, but this, you've seen these photos, right?
Yes, briefly, yes.
And this would show that event, them trying to get so they got a search warrant. They went back to Mr. Kelly's ranch and took a piece off of the tree, correct?
That's correct, ma'am.
And this tree was tested, right?
Believe so, yes.
And no evidence was found on this tree, correct?
That's correct.
Permission to enter into evidence for Defense UU.
Well, since the witness, we can't lay proper foundation, but I think he already testified that they look accurate, no objection.
UU is admitted.
Permission to publish.
Granted.
I understand you weren't there, but I would like to make a point about these photos, okay? Can you see the first one?
Yes, ma'am. Sorry.
Yes.
These are all stapled together. And I'm going to go down to the second one. Is that upside down? I'm going to the third
I feel
one.
like she's on a very short leash right now. I feel like the judge is going to admonish her. I'm not sure though.
Now the fourth photo. Fifth photo. And back to looking at the tree, measuring. why I wanted to show you all this is because do you see them properly measuring the locations of the evidence from not only for identification purposes, but later for distances also?
That's what the pictures are showing, yes.
Nowhere with the spent casings did anyone take the time, isn't it true, and measure where each casing was in location to fixed objects.
We did not measure, we just labeled with placards.
The proper way in any reconstruction of something, whether it's an accident or evidence, is to do exactly what was done on this tree to the other evidence. Correct?
Like I
The
said,
proper way.
like I said, that day, we just located them, photographed them, and
But, sorry.
no, it's okay. I understand your question of the label, the measuring. I
Yes,
understand.
and I get it's not your job initially. It was crime scene's job initially, correct? Correct?
Us, CID?
CID, however
Yes.
you call it in your department.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, sir. And the reasoning is because you had to put the casings back down on another time to help with the reconstruction. I mean, or any other reason you might need to go back and do it, and it's not even documented, correct?
I was not part of that, man.
Okay, but it is true.
I don't know, man. I was not part of that.
But you
That's
saw the photos.
Yes, ma'am.
You
But-
didn't see one measured out like you did in this grouping here.
You're
Then
talking
I'm,
about.
I'm sorry.
ma'am.
Let me
I
refer it to you, defense you for the record.
I didn't see any casings on there. That's what you're asking me.
No tape measuring where the
no, ma'am.
casings were in relationship to the different fixtures of the patio.
No, ma'am.
So to accurately relay down, it's somewhat of a guess, just a guess by eyesight, an estimate, correct?
That's correct.
So the tree didn't offer any help. Let's talk about the shooting pattern. We sent this out to an expert, and he took the gun, a rifle of Mr. Kelly's, and shot to say it was in working order, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, which no one's denying the casings on the ground were the ones that were used to shoot over the head of the 5 subjects. That hasn't been an issue in this case, has it?
Just for clarification, she referred to an expert. We have 2 firearm experts in this case. So which one is she referring to?
I'm talking, I haven't got into the question yet. But we had a shooting pattern expert who shot and determined the pattern of the casings, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Did that assist in any way improving the guilt of my client?
Just the ejection pattern, ma'am. That was what was done, the ejection pattern.
But we're measuring it up against something that didn't get measured,
I
correct?
wasn't there, ma'am.
No, it's just a yes or no. You know,
No,
is there a
no.
photo of it being measured?
No.
Okay. So it's a hypothetical that there could have been some other testing that was not ordered by your department or whoever had the authority to the angle of the fire testing wasn't done. Okay? And do you remember that part of the testimony?
I believe so, yes.
But yet we know in this case, the rifle was held up and he even gave 100 yards up over their head is what he gave. And since we didn't do a walkthrough to have him show you how that gun was being held, maybe enough of a guess could have been done, but it wasn't compared with this expert, right? They didn't do that.
I believe so. Like I said, I wasn't.
So the shooting pattern doesn't really show you anything that would go towards his guilt, would it?
Ask me to guess, I'm not gonna guess.
But there's no evidence that you could use and say, but the shooting pattern shows he's guilty, right?
Objection, Your Honor. Argumentative.
Sustained.
Nothing in that investigation that led you to go further, maybe in testing other things with that, right?
Amen.
Okay. Now, the crime scene, there was never a bullet. So we don't have a gun that went through the a victim in this case, correct?
That's correct. We didn't find the projectile.
And there's obviously still stuff on the property somewhere that didn't get discovered. Was that possible?
What are you referring to, man?
Extra more casings on the ground somewhere, maybe?
We didn't locate any, other than
Okay.
the one behind the porch.
Well, and how long did it take before you all found that?
It was hours later.
And yet they were right there,
That's correct.
right where he said he came outside and shot above the head. And your department couldn't find him right away, correct?
That's correct. It was too dark. No lighting. We missed-
Well, would it be fair to say then the best thing to do is make sure no one goes in and out of this property, protect the crime scene, and revisit it in the morning if you couldn't get proper lighting out there? There was no hurry, right? I mean, you could have evaluated it, waited for daybreak, and then go back out and keep looking, correct?
well, we cleared and I applied for another search warrant. And you're correct. Not the second day, but actually hours after we left. Same day.
And then you look to witnesses to determine your strength of your case and your investigation. And I mentioned earlier there was 3. The jurors are aware of 1. But there's also Mrs. Kelly. She's a witness, isn't she?
That's correct.
Okay. And then the defendant being cooperative, Alan was just chatting away, trying to help, saying that he wanted to cooperate, right?
If he was 100% cooperative, man, he would have let me know right off the bat that he discharged his firearm. But he never did. Also, he had the opportunity to tell several officers on scene.
Well, let's look at that line of questioning. Because your questions was, if I remember, let me see if I can find some. It was something to the effect, did you shoot at that gentleman? And you kept asking, did you shoot at somebody? Correct?
That's correct.
And he kept saying, no, I did not shoot at them, at him, the gentleman. Question, George, did you shoot this gentleman? That's the type of questionings you were asking of Alan, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And if ultimately he says, how would I know? But then he said, but I did not shoot at anybody. Okay? Because he's over the head. And he's owned a lodge. He taught people how to hunt and took them out on their property to do that. So we would assume in your investigation that you could assume that he knows how to handle a weapon, correct?
We can assume that, yes.
So you never shot this gentleman. And he adamantly said, no, I didn't. Okay, so that goes on for quite some time until you finally changed your question. After he says another time, I did not shoot at those gentlemen. Did you shoot? That's the first time you didn't add someone else to it, a pronoun of some sort referencing someone. And he said, yes, meaning he did shoot, but I shot over their heads. So it was your questions that he's responding to, and you want him to do your investigation and tell you all that when he's relying on your questions and answering your questions.
No, Mac he shot. He's the one that shot.
Over their heads.
Doesn't matter over the heads or at me. He shot, and there's a dead body.
Why doesn't that matter, sir?
What's that?
Why doesn't it matter where he shot? Just that the fact that he shot.
There's no way he could have shot over their heads and strike the victim the way he was struck, ma'am.
Exactly. That's why we're here. Shooting that way over the heads to my right, as illustrated in the courtroom on Friday, and shooting at a victim that you believe didn't move and went down right there. There is no way he did it by your words, correct?
Ma'am, Friday you were asking me some very hypothetical questions that I don't even remember what you were asking me now, ma'am, that day. But the shot, and Mr. Kelly, since the beginning was very untruthful. Very untruthful. That shot came from him. There's evidence.
I'm trying to find the evidence. So we're going through, we had witnesses that had inconsistent statements that didn't pan out even against each other or to the scene itself. There was really not a confession here. So let's talk about another piece of evidence, a footprint. You remember that one?
I remember the picture, but I wasn't there.
Okay. So the footprint was a close-up footprint. And it did not help us in guiding us which way that footprint went towards. In other words, you could tell a heel from a toe on a footprint, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So if that was, and I don't know if an expert has testified to this yet, but I don't think it's going to happen. But if that was Gabriel's footprint, the victim's footprint, tracking his footprints might have showed which way he was coming from and which way maybe he was going. Did anyone do that?
I don't know, ma'am.
Do you know that Border Patrol, who was assisting you on this case, may have a lot of experts that could have offered help in tracking? Did you solicit their help at all?
No, ma'am. I know when the first initial call, they went out there.
That's different from asking them for anyone in their group of agents are able to assist with tracking because you found a footprint. So, and if it was the victims based on the boot design, wouldn't it have been helpful for us to hear today which direction was that foot aimed towards?
Like I said, ma'am, I wasn't there when that footprint was
I didn't
found,
ask that, sir.
but-
You're the head detective that could have had the power to explore this piece of evidence.
Yes, ma'am, but I was not there at that night.
But you admit the photo that we saw was one footprint close up that didn't give us any directionality, correct?
I don't know, ma'am. I don't know that footprint. I wasn't there. I didn't take it.
You saw it in court, sir.
I know I saw it, ma'am.
Okay. Did that photo give you any hints to the direction it was aimed towards?
The way it was taken, no.
Okay, thank you. That wasn't a trick question. So it was close up, correct?
It was a close-up, yes.
Okay. Had they zoomed out and gave us some environment around it to help us guide us with that, that would have been helpful, don't you think?
It could have helped.
Yes. Now we could determine, wait, does that go against the way the bullet entered into his body? Or is there another footprint out there in that direction or coming from the direction to give us more information that could have done that, correct?
I don't know, ma'am. I wasn't there. I didn't find any other footprints when I went out there the next day.
But we know there had to be footprints because there's all of the officers' footprints out there, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Mr. Kelly was fairly close to the body, correct, to check on him. The dog footprints would have been there, correct?
Correct.
Okay. What about the 3 people that put themselves at the scene and one of them right behind them, which we heard testimony here? What about their footprint? Where's their footprints?
I don't know, ma'am.
Okay. But we didn't bother to get a tracker to tell us for sure, correct?
That's correct. We don't request
Okay.
a tracker.
But it might have been offered since they were involved, the Border Patrol, maybe they would have offered someone for free if you had just asked.
They're always willing to assist.
Yes. And then there's the dog. The dog is what the 2 dogs, the Labrador, they're hunting dogs, right?
I don't know if they're hunting dogs, but I know they're Labradors.
Okay, and they are tracking dogs a lot for the breed. Assuming that they're the ones that also happen to find the body, correct?
Yes,
From the
ma'am.
story,
Yes.
okay? So when Mr. Kelly went back out that evening, the dogs kind of took away from him and alerted to the location of the body, correct?
That's my understanding, yes.
So when Mr. Kelly went out the first time to check on his horse and make sure the horse wasn't shot, which would have been in that same area, according to DRR or witnesses that are in the case, why didn't the dogs alert to the body then? Did you ever ponder that question?
I don't know why, ma'am. I can't answer that question.
Is it possible it wasn't there then?
You're asking me to guess, ma'am.
Is it possible that this backpack was dragged if it wasn't pulled to look into? Maybe it was a body being dragged. Have you thought of that?
There was no evidence, ma'am, of a body being dragged, the backpack being involved in the dragging, or a struggle, ma'am.
Okay. So why does the medical examiner note abrasions on the body?
When he fell down, ma'am.
Sir, that might be a bruise. An abrasion is more of a scraping.
If he's running, ma'am, if he's running, he fell face forward with his momentum, his body weight, that can cause injury too, ma'am.
You didn't check the alternative, did you?
What alternative?
Well, the fact that his hand is holding on to grass may be because he's being dragged.
There's no evidence of that, ma'am. There's no evidence of a struggle.
I'm trying to show you evidence that there could have been evidence of a struggle. Are you saying that's impossible, that this deceased grabbed on the grass in that type of motion?
When he's falling down, ma'am, the grass is pretty high. So he's grabbing his chest at the same time, probably grabbing hair too. Grass, I mean, I apologize.
Well, maybe the reason the right hand was under the body and the left was out, correct? Sound right?
Yes.
Maybe he was trying to hold on to his fanny pack. Possible?
I don't know that answer, ma'am.
Okay. His hand is cupped.
Billy's watched, you've seen the pictures.
What about the fact that the abrasion matches up to one of the sleeves? The abrasion is located where one of the sleeves was apparently damaged or frayed also. Did you notice that?
No, ma'am, I didn't notice it.
And this would be the abrasion on the arm. What about the evidence that in the, let's take a look at this. do you remember when all parties went to the evidence room before trial and looked at the evidence? Were you present?
Yes, ma'am, was there.
Do you remember that we also took photos and you observed us taking photos, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And did those photos look like the type of photos that we were taking, specifically the ones on top or the pants?
Yes, ma'am. Recognize the pen and the point Mr. Martinelli was using.
Yes. And is it common practice sometimes to put something down as a comparison for size and length?
Not for us, man. We don't touch anything with another object to not cross-contaminate.
Well, if you use a pen and you were upset about it, I will give you that. But if you use a pen to lift up, there's no DNA. It's a way of collecting evidence. Correct?
Yes.
Okay.
These worked by Mr. Martinelli, correct?
Yes. But you were right there
Yes,
observing.
yes.
And you took your own photos of some of the same items that we were focused on, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So these photos do accurately depict the photos from the evidence room not too long ago. That's been marked as defense TT.
That were taken by your.
Right, but you could identify these.
Yes.
I'd like to enter it into evidence.
No objection, Your Honor.
TT is admitted.
Permission to publish.
Granted.
Now, there was a broken zipper pocket to the pants on this first photo. And so it's kind of potentially gaped open. The quarter was not there just for the juror's sake of information. It was to help determine size, okay?
Yes, ma'am.
But the pocket was from the deceased pants pocket that was wide open, but possibly with a broken zipper. And there's a lot of debris in this pocket, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
We got some of the grass, particles, dirt. So if a body was dragged in the pants pocket, I'm gonna turn to the next photo down. And there's a pen being reflected to some of this debris found in the pants pocket. Sorry. And again, the pen is not part of the evidence. It was used for measurement. And these are the pants that was on the deceased, correct?
Yes, also the decedent's pants.
And we saw this hat in another evidence that I entered. Again, the way it was flipped on the body and the dirt that lies on it was something I pointed out before. You remember that?
Yes, ma'am.
And this reflects the broken buckle on the fanny pack, correct?
That's correct.
Again, if you jerked it off of someone or used it to grab onto them to pull, whichever, we won't know. It could have broken the buckle, correct?
I can't answer that, ma'am. I don't know what happened to that buckle.
I know. And I guess this is the buckle. I'm turning the pages, and now there's the fanny pack with the pen inside to show the size of the inside of the fanny pack.
He's yawning. You and me
That's
both,
correct.
dude.
And again, I know this person was probably out there for a while, but the fact that there was also a lot of debris in the stitches of his shoelaces, perhaps a little bit of ruffledness at the tips of the toes. That's what these two photos have. Can you see these two?
Yes, I can see him.
A little bit more of the pocket, on the back pocket, I believe. So you say there's no evidence of dragging, but wouldn't it be more fair to say there was no evidence pursued for dragging this body?
I don't know what happened with those pants, man. That debris can be from anywhere. It doesn't prove that he was dragged.
Now, but along with the backpack being up over his head, the broken buckle and the fanny pack on the side, the abrasions that match the tears in the clothing, and, you know, the debris that you just mentioned, I mean, together, maybe that should have been explored. What do you think?
Like I said, man, there was no signs of a struggle or robbery being dragged or anything like that.
Then there's with the medical examiner, we don't have the time of death because we have reasoning that you guys don't have your own medical examiner. But it is, you do understand the duty of law enforcement in the state to gather the evidence. It's your duty to present it to a jury if it goes that far, correct?
That's correct.
It's not the defense's duty. You understand that, right?
That's correct.
Okay. So time of death is a guess based on the time that one of your officers noted his death, but it may not reflect. It could be a couple hours off. It could be 6 hours off. It could be 10 minutes off. You don't know, do you?
I'm not an expert, ma'am. I don't know.
No, but we didn't get an investigator. And if your county chooses not to have a contract and you can't pay the bill, then that's the state's responsibility, isn't it?
You would have to ask them, ma'am. Like I said, we don't have a contract with the coroner other than doing our autopsies.
But what if the time of death was 30 minutes before Alan called, noting the body? Wouldn't that possibly have exonerated him, at least with those casing shells that were by the house?
Like I said, ma'am,
Objection, argumentative, Your Honor.
Overruled.
like I said, ma'am, I don't know. I'm not an expert on that.
No, no, no. They said that the time that they were pronounced dead is the time that they found him dead. They said that a couple times. They didn't say that that was the time of death. The coroner didn't do, give a time of death. The coroner even said pronounced dead at. Like they didn't. No one gave me a time of death in this at all. So I don't know what she's getting at. No one said time of death. They said when they pronounced him dead.
So time of death could have helped the case one way or the other. Would you agree with that?
I'm not gonna guess, ma'am, on that.
And the fact that the body was taken to a morgue right away instead of the medical examiner and placed in a fridge so that the body temperature couldn't be analyzed keeps also from this determination to be accurate, correct?
I'm not aware if the body was taken from straight to the funeral or to the OMI. I don't have that information.
And we also have angle issues because we all know from the skeleton that I brought in with the rod that was placed and placed by the medical examiner into the body, it showed, and I'm holding my pen up, showing a form of an angle where the bullet goes in lower and comes up upward, right?
I remember your demonstration.
And the problem is there's so many possibilities to say what it could be from, why it's in that angle. What we know is it's not necessarily a straight shot in and straight shot out like we would expect someone to shoot, correct?
That's correct.
Now, I'm going to put a rifle in my hand, although Mr. Kelly's left-handed, but pretending that he's like me, and I'm holding my pretend rifle. And I'm a marksman. I mean, I've been a hunter. I know I'm military. I've been a veteran. Okay. I know how to shoot. Okay. So I go to shoot, you said 9 shots, right? 9 casings.
9 casings.
Okay. So am I going to try to target something? Most likely, right?
Yes, correct.
Okay. because we all been to the shooting range, right? You've been to the shooting range,
Yes, ma'am.
and you're trying to get that little hole in the silhouette, or however you guys do your shooting, but to show your marksmanship, correct?
That's correct.
So I'm going to shoot 9 times. Bang, 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 9 times. We got 1 bullet hole in a subject. Where is the other 8 damages? Why isn't there 1 bullet in DRR who's right behind him? Why isn't there one in his own horse, which I doubt he would want to do? But why isn't there some trees that show the damage? Or the pergola? All these things that I'm listing in my question are samples of things that could have been struck, but no evidence of, correct?
Objection, Your Honor. This is all argumentative, Your Honor.
Overruled, he can answer.
There was no damages found anywhere around the area.
So how does a marksman that knows how to hunt and shoot not show other 8 bullet pieces of evidence?
I have no answer for that, ma'am.
Is it possible that the 1 bullet and the 1 hole that happened possibly before he stepped out of the house matches better?
Ma'am, Mr. Kelly's first phone call was, I'm being shot at, I'm shooting back.
Well, it was 1 shot, and that's enough to say I'm being shot at. When you don't know, it's close, but you don't know where that bullet's going because he's in the house and it's right outside his house.
Is that a question?
So how does that square up to what you just said?
What do you mean?
Okay.
All right, I
Being
think-
shot, I
Go-
get the question.
Go ahead.
You said that his statement was he's being shot at. But isn't 1 bullet, 1 shot from a rifle or handgun enough to say I'm being shot at?
1 shot?
Is that enough to say I'm being shot at?
Well, going back to his statements, he said at first he was being shot at, then he changed that he believed he was being shot at or close proximity to him. He changes his story.
Well, he doesn't know which person did it because it could be out by the body or it could be with these 5 guys, but it was close enough for him to feel threatened. He saw rifles, according to his version, and Mrs. Kelly's version, correct?
Then they changed.
That would be epic. She sounds like she's almost crying. That would be epic if she starts crying, just to make her case. I would approve of that. Yes, I would.
Change their stories again, man.
I think it's being fair to say, I don't know where they were shooting at, but I heard it. It's being honest, isn't it?
But when you're changing the story, man, from 2 to 5 to 10 to 15, not knowing if they had rifle was too far, if they had rifles, I don't know if the shot came from. I thought I heard a shot. His stories were inconsistent, man.
Do you know after he made his first call that, to Jeremy in the beginning, that after shooting in the air, that he believes he saw movement of possibly more people out there than 250 yards out. Do you
But-
remember him telling you that?
But he didn't tell Angel Marcel that about the shoot. He just told him that he's being shot at and he's shooting back.
When you walk out the door and what you think is what you saw through the window and see them in this direction and you shoot your over the head. And then as you turn around thinking they've gone and you see movement out there of possibly more people and believing that this is a war between them, where do you think he got that from?
Agent Marcel?
He's hearing, you all are hearing parts of the story based on what time you took to question him. And if one person would have just sat there and did this walkthrough, maybe the whole story would have made sense.
But
Is that possible?
There's no evidence, man, of 5 people being out there running with packs or rifles. None whatsoever.
If you did the walkthrough and allowed him to show from the beginning to end and retell the whole story in order, maybe some of his bits and pieces would have made more sense, don't you think?
No, man, because he was untruthful from the beginning, and his stories kept changing
I know.
and changing and changing throughout my interview.
Some of them was just misrepresentation of facts from people.
Objection, Your Honor.
Correct.
Argument is
Sustained.
What about the phones? You did phones work. Now, I know we got text messages. We'll talk about that in a second. What about anything else where you were able to determine who was at the scene and different things like that? Did that show you any evidence that would lead you to believe in your investigation that he was guilty of this?
I did not partake in any of those search warrants or if you're referring to the geofencing, ma'am.
Yes. So,
I didn't. Detective Barba testified to that. He helped me with that. He assisted me with that.
but you oversee that and the results. Did it help at all in your investigation of making your case that George Allen Kelly did this?
But there was nothing, no other cell phone, no other data, no other pings found in the geofencing.
So the answer would be there's no evidence there.
There's
correct?
no evidence there.
Thank you, sir. And now let's go to the text messages. There were a lot of text messages first, and in order of time, earlier, in January, proceeding in order to the date of this incident, okay? January 30th. There were quite a bit of text messages between Allen and the Border Patrol liaison, warning him of incidences. It was going back and forth at different times in different days, but there was quite a few text messages intercepted in your phone dump, correct?
Objection, Your Honor. We're getting into areas that the court has ruled on.
This came in.
No, the text messages directly with his son and another individual came in.
All right, well, that question just calls for a yes or no answer. So
Yes.
if you want to restate the question, calls for a yes or no answer, and then we'll wait to see what the next question is.
I think Marcel's messages came in. We didn't object to those. So I don't know what the issue
Well,
is.
let's just do a question and answer.
Okay.
Ask question.
I'm asking you, wasn't it true there were quite a bit of text messages between the agent Border Patrol liaison, Jeremy, and Allen Kelly, discussing what was going on around his property and what was on his property? These messages were going back and forth in the beginning of the text messages that were entered into evidence, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Now, what's being made a big deal about is his response on how he acts with two close people to him. One is a close, longtime friend. The other one was his son, correct?
I remember correct. Yes.
Okay. Now, I know he brought this up, the way he acted when you first put him in your interrogation room on Friday. So he never said, "I am going to kill someone." That's not what was said, right?
That's what the
No.
text messages don't say that.
No. But just as he was laughing off the initial sit down with you in the interrogation room, trying to joke it off, it could be that he is just also scared, and being a man's man doesn't like to admit that. Isn't it possible?
If he was a scared man, he wouldn't be out there patrolling, man.
Okay, being scared and going out on the front line in the military is two different things.
I've been in the military. I'm a vet also, man, so I
Okay.
understand.
So human factors come in even when you are forced to defend, correct?
But why would you be patrolling by yourself out there where he lives?
Because he has a wife that he's protecting. He has livestock he's protecting. Aren't those two good enough reasons?
That's what we're there for, man. Border Patrol and us.
How
If-
long does it always take to get help out there?
It depends, man.
Okay, so when he stepped out to see what these guys were doing on his property, he didn't have a right to defend his property?
There was no one else, man. There was no shot taken from. There's only one shot, man.
and guys running by with at least a rifle or more and backpacks running across their window view. Now, does he have a right to protect his property?
Counsel, the court's going to instruct the jury at the close of the case
Yes.
on the legal standards for use of self-defense. It'll be up to the jury to just apply that law to the facts that have been presented in evidence.
Yes, sir.
So this witness's legal opinion, this witness's opinion about whether something is legally or not legally justified, that's the court's province to instruct the jury on the law and for
Yes,
them
sir.
to decide the issue.
And if I may, to the court, tell him I wasn't really trying to get him as a legal opinion, but as to his investigation and his comments that he should have stayed inside and waited for
All right,
police.
let's, given the court's instruction here, you could ask another question.
Okay.
You can try and rephrase the question or ask another
Okay.
question.
You will admit that he was on his own property, correct?
Yes, he is on his property.
And the only other person in his home was his wife, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And whether it's brave or not, Mr. Kelly stepped out to see what was going on his property, correct?
That's what he's stating, yes.
Yes. And that doesn't mean that he fears and have concerns for his safety and his wife's safety and his livestock safety, correct?
He's got concerns.
Okay. I mean, his horse was out there, right?
That's correct.
Okay. Do you really think he would have shot towards his horse? It was right next to him. It saved the life of DRR, didn't it?
Mr. Kelly went out there to check on the horse, to check if he himself has shot the horse, ma'am.
No, sir. He never said that.
Let's ask, let's ask questions.
Do you really believe that a old horse that is more like a pet than anything else on that ranch, Mr. Kelly would have shot at it?
Well, you're going out there and shooting 9 rounds, ma'am.
Mhm. With none of those rounds hitting anything, correct?
Well, he's running. Horse is running. And there's testimony to that, ma'am.
Can I have a minute?
Absolutely. Go ahead.
Detective Ansa needs a minute too. I can hear his breathing.
Sure.
I like how Detective Ansa is holding his ground. I like it. Hold on. We are at 2 hours and 27 minutes. Okay, I think I went too far. Oh, they're not on the thing. Oh, that's just the white machine, so there's no way I could fast forward through this.
Sure.
Maybe I can. I thought they were done. They separated. They're done.
You testified Friday there's a pine tree on his property. Where is this pine tree?
I said there's pine trees around the property, not on his property.
How far away, sir?
I don't know, ma'am. I will be guessing, but I don't know how far the Keno Springs area is to his house.
Well, you know how big his property is, correct?
I believe, yes.
Okay. And to get to different communities and say that that testimony is accurate to place them at Mr. Kelly's property would be a far stretch, wouldn't it?
Can you repeat the question, ma'am?
The fact that someone else at some other location has a pine tree, when you're saying everything happened right here at this location, how does that support that statement of DRR?
Like I said, ma'am, this is an individual that's in a foreign country with a 6th grade education, doesn't know where he's at. 15 minutes later, after he sees Border Patrol, he's running. That's when he starts receiving the gunshots.
Well, you're giving DRR a defense of being uneducated, but he's been in this area, obviously, and should know where he's at. But yet he placed himself on the wrong side of town, correct?
Objection are argumentative.
Sustained, but you can rephrase the question.
Did DRR say he was on the other side of town? Versus west versus east?
He just said he was in the area of Keno Springs.
What about the fact that we all got to see the wall? And he said he was about 2 football fields away. This property is way more than 2 football fields away from the border, correct?
That's correct?
And yet he ran to the border, right?
Yes,
He got away, apparently, according to his story, correct?
that's correct.
And whether he went around the wall where it ended or went over, however he got back to the other side of Mexico, he knows how far away he was, sir, don't you agree? Because he traveled it.
When you're being shot at, man, and you're running, you don't measure distance. He's running for his life.
And he also said he was 10 meters away from the house. Are you familiar with meters?
Somewhat.
If I was to stand and get you to tell me about, not exact, I'm going to walk. I want you to stop me when I'm about 10 meters from you, okay?
Tell me feet, man, but meters, I don't know.
Okay, well, I'm just going to guess here. Just give me your estimate of 10 meters. Just tell me to stop anytime.
Stop. Yes. I don't know. 10 meters.
Even an unintelligent, uneducated person at 10 meters could have seen the house. Isn't that true?
That's correct.
And he said he was 10 meters from the house. Correct?
I believe that's what he said.
Doesn't make sense, does it?
No.
He also said that there was a border patrol road that goes directly to the border right there by the house. And that's not true, huh?
There are some roads.
Well, we traveled probably the most concise road to get to the wall from Mr. Kelly's location, and you had to leave his property, go back out to the street, and go down a ways and take a different road to get there. Isn't that true?
We took the safest road out there with the jurors. That's the safest road we could take. But there is more roads out there.
Is any of those on Alan's property?
Not directly on the property.
Is any of them near where the body was found?
No, ma'am.
Just checking my notes, Judge. I'm about done. I'll pass the witness.
Redirect examination.
Good morning, Detective.
Morning, sir.
We'll start off with just the overall question. When officers respond, what is the response for when they respond the first time to the scene, to the Kelly location?
What is the response?
What's the purpose of the response? Do you know?
Preservation of life.
What's going on?
Active shooter.
Active shooter.
That's correct.
In your investigation, and you sat here in trial, heard all the evidence.
Yes, sir.
How many shooters are there in this case?
One.
And who's that shooter?
Mr. Kelly himself.
Your Honor, I'm going to object to foundation. He wasn't there.
Well, it's his opinion, right?
Yes,
You're asking his opinion?
correct, Your Honor.
Overruled. I mean, there have been a lot of questions by both sides with this witness and others about what their opinion is, and based upon hypothetical facts and established facts. So he's previously given his opinion in cross-examination, so this is allowed.
And this is in no particular order, just based upon my notes. I'm going to show you what I believe has been entered as Defense Exhibit JJJ. Can I have let me just take your copy over there. You have JJJ? Or do you have JJJ?
Ain't going to make me look for it with no warning.
I'll move on as counsel looks for JJJ. Detective, you're the lead detective in this case?
Yes, I am, sir.
And as lead detective, you did the search warrants?
Yes, I did.
What's the standard of proof for the search warrants?
Probable cause.
You also assisted in the arrest of the defendant?
Yes, I did.
What's the standard of proof for the arrest of the defendant?
Probable cause.
And we're here in trial under a different standard of proof, right?
That's correct.
And who makes the decision, the final decision, if you know, on the charges being brought against the defendant?
County Attorney's Office.
And counsel, I'm also looking for the photos. Is it TT? So JJJ and TT.
3 J's or 2?
3, I think. 3 J's and 2 T's. Let's talk about like I said, this is no particular order because I'm just going to cover some stuff. Let's talk about the measurements of the casings found on scene. You remember the cross-examination questions pertaining to whether or not you measured between shell casing to shell casing
That's correct.
or shell casing to a fixed object?
That's correct.
And you are also cross-examined on forensic expert from DPS Labs, Brudenell.
That's correct. I was here.
And Brudenell is the one, to remind you, did the ejection patterns
That's correct.
using that same gun.
That's correct.
And you heard detective or forensic scientist Brudenell talk about if you were to shoot 10 rounds 50 times, would you have the same exact ejection pattern laid out on the ground?
That's correct.
You would have the exact same ejection pattern on the ground?
Yes.
Well, if you have a bouncy surface?
Oh, no, it depends on the surface. I apologize, my correction. It depends on the surface. You won't have the exact same. Depends where it lands, depends on the surface. That's what you're asking me.
Yeah, so what I basically want to ask is, Brudenell had his ejection pattern that the jury heard testimony about, right?
That's correct.
You were here,
That's correct.
and we have the ejection pattern found at the scene,
That's correct.
right? Is there any testimony that they're exactly the same?
No, ma'am. No, sir.
But is there testimony that they're consistent?
No, sir.
They're not consistent?
Well, the shots from this, yes.
Oh, sorry. No, I'm looking for TT.
That is 2.
Yeah, and JJ. Oh, this is the one, JJ. Thank you, man. I'm gonna go back to. I'm gonna show the fanny pack real quick. Remember the cross-examination questions regarding the fanny pack and the backpack?
Yes, sir.
Do you recall the examination questions pertaining to, I'm going to show Defense Exhibit TT, which has been admitted. I'm looking at image 1, 2, 3, image on page 3. Permission to publish. That's the fanny pack, right?
Yes, sir.
And that's the one where defense counsel asked you about the buckle?
That's correct.
We see the buckle on that page, right?
That's correct.
Besides being possibly pulled and ripped, in your opinion, could the buckle have been broken when the victim fell to the ground after being shot?
Yes.
And also, too, there were some questions about looking at the photo, and the jury's got the actual fanny pack in evidence if they want to look at the actual item. But on that,
Nope, nope. That's not getting me there either. You can't. I mean, I highly, highly, highly doubt that belt buckle was broken from someone falling to the ground with it on. And if it was broken, it wouldn't have been broken and then moved beside him. Because I mean, it could have already been broken. He could have been carrying it. That makes the most sense to me, that it was already broken and he was carrying it for some reason. His pants zipper was already broken, right? But no, I don't buy it that someone yanked it so hard that it broke the buckle either, because those buckles are very, very hard to break.
photo, do you see any blood on that?
No.
And once again, in the backpack and the fanny pack, what was found? What items were found in those?
Items of clothing and food.
Also water?
It was water inside. Yes, it was about water inside.
And since we're still on this, I want to ask you, who was the first one to find the body? The first person to find this body?
Mr. Kelly.
Mr. Kelly. And we've heard testimony that Mr. Kelly has 2 labs, right?
That's correct.
So Mr. Kelly and his 2 labs find this body.
That's correct.
In your opinion, could Mr. Kelly and the 2 labs have contaminated this scene?
That's correct.
There was some discussion on cross about the time of death. You recall that?
Yes, sir.
Do you recall we want to do two different things here. Time of death versus pronouncement of death. You understand the difference between the two?
Yes, sir.
Do you recall when the pronouncement of death occurred in this case?
I can refer, but it's an approximate 6 something, sir. I needed to see the report.
Would 6:24 be approximate?
It was somewhere around there, yes, 6:24 p.m.
And that's the pronouncement of death, which means the time of death happened before that.
That's correct.
And you heard, talking about this, you heard testimony in this case. Was there rigor already setting in on the victim's body?
Yes.
You heard cross-examination question about the victim's position when found.
Yes, I remember.
Again, can you show the jury by physically standing up and showing us how the victim, when rolled over, how he was found?
He was right hand, this chest.
And where's his left hand?
What's that?
Show us both hands. No, don't like you're under arrest. I just want to show where is his right hand and where is his left hand?
I can't remember exactly the picture, but I believe his left hand was in the middle of the chest. Right.
Let me show you a picture to
Yeah,
refresh.
All right, this has been shown to the jury
Okay.
many, many times. If you have questions about
I
it,
do.
they've seen the picture. It's been covered in testimony. If you have questions about it, ask the questions.
I do. So on this picture, you follow me?
Yes,
And he falls, the victim has fallen forward,
that's correct.
right? Is there grass on the ground?
Yes,
Like high grass, right?
yes.
So if you fall forward, if you have one hand on your chest and you fall forward, what's going to happen? What's going to happen with your hand in the grass?
It's gonna come in between.
No, I don't buy that one. Nope.
And do you have any information whatsoever that the marksmanship or the ability of the defendant to shoot correctly or accurately, do you have any information whatsoever?
None whatsoever.
Let's talk about the casings found on scene.
Yes, sir.
We have the first, do you remember the first phone call the defendant says?
Yes,
And that was to Agent Marcel
that's correct.
at 2:30, right?
That's correct.
And then we have a litany of officers who have contact with the defendant after that phone call, right?
That's
I'm
correct.
going to object to leading.
Foundation, Your Honor.
It's just foundational, so it's overruled.
We have a litany of officers who are on scene who have contact with the defendant.
That's correct.
At any time in that conversation, do you recall, was there any statement by the defendant that he shot his weapon?
None whatsoever.
If there was a statement that defendant shot his weapon, would you have looked for casings if he had admitted that?
Yes.
As far as the pine trees go, do you recall when Daniel said when he saw the pine trees?
Yes.
When?
He said he was in the Keno Springs area right before they encountered or they saw Border Patrol. That's to avoid detection.
Then after that, they see Border Patrol and the event ensues from that, right?
Leading, objection.
Sustained.
I want to show you that we're going to go into the transcript real quick. I'm going to show you Government Exhibit 15. 15. You recognize Government Exhibit 15?
Yes.
Is that omitted?
No, it's used for demonstrative purposes. It's the interview transcript.
Thank you.
I'm going to have you turn to page 29 for me.
I'm there.
You're there? We're going to look at line 12. You see line 12?
Yes, sir.
Your question was, this is about shooting his weapon, okay?
Yes.
And if I read something out of context, I want you to correct me, all right?
Okay.
Question. That's not on line 11. I'm getting the question beforehand. That's not what you just told me. You shot at them. Answer, not at them, over their heads. Did I read that right?
Yes.
I want to walk us through what does not at them, but over their heads mean to you?
No difference. No, doesn't mean anything.
I'm going to show you, turn to page 31 for me. And this is 30 minutes into the interview, right?
Yes, sir.
31, line 11. You asked a question, a follow-up question. On line 11, 150 yards away from you, question. Answer, 100 to 150. I didn't measure the distance. Did I read that right?
Yes.
So he's putting the victim, do you know how far the victim is found in this case?
Approximately 116 yards.
Do you know how many times in this interview, because the jury's got it, do you know how many times you recall that the defendant finally admits to shooting at the victim or, quote, over their heads?
7 times.
Let's talk about Daniel's, before I move on, I want to talk about Defense Exhibit JJJ. These are the call detail reports. I think they've been admitted, JJJ.
Yes.
Oh, yeah, that was it.
And just for ease of record, I think we're just going to refer to it by the Bates number on the bottom. So I'm going to show you Defense Exhibit JJJ, Bates number 56 on the bottom. Permission to publish?
JJJ has not. Those are the call sheets, correct?
They have not or have?
Have not.
They were used in demonstrative, permission to use in demonstrative purposes. I thought the defense attorney went laboriously over each of the call logs.
So you want to use it for demonstrative purposes?
Yeah, we can use it for demonstrative. I thought they were admitted.
Is there any
They
objection?
are admitted.
I-
They're admitted. I published the whole thing.
Yeah, they are admitted.
Triple J.
Well, we'll resolve that, but in the meantime, you can publish. Do
Okay.
you have any objection to publishing? You think it's admitted, right?
No, sir.
Thank you. Side.
Look at the bottom of that screen. Call report. We're looking at 3:05 in the afternoon. Do you see that, Detective?
Yes, sir.
And it says called and advised. What's the 865? Do you remember what an 865 is?
865 is the call sign we use for Nogales Border Patrol.
Border Patrol called and advised they contacted the spouse of Alan. And that's going to be who? Who's the spouse of Alan?
Ms. Wanda Kelly.
It's Wanda Kelly. And advised there were 5 on property. Caller advised Alan is trying to chase them south of the property.
That's correct.
Did I read that right?
Yes, sir.
Counsel,
Sorry.
do you have questions about this? I mean, the purpose of the redirect isn't
do.
just for you to read things that are in the record. So,
I do.
okay, let's get to that.
No, I don't object to that. This exceeds the scope. I didn't even talk to him about this in my cross-examination.
She highlighted the fact that no one's chasing them.
Well, there was cross-examination about misinterpretation of the calls, but let's ask your question, and if you have another objection to the question, I'll rule on the objection.
Detective, did you have information pertaining to that report before you interviewed the defendant?
Yes.
And again, may I ask you, in your investigation, did you find any evidence of RIP crew activity?
None whatsoever.
Did you find any evidence of backpacks with drugs?
None.
Did you find any evidence of guns?
None.
Did you find any evidence of a robbery or a struggle or dragging?
None.
Just one moment, Your Honor. Let me look at my notes one more time, Judge. So the questions I have, Your Honor.
All right, thank you, Mr. Jetty. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, any questions for this witness from any members of the jury? All right, I see at least one or two. We'll go on to the headsets.
At least 2 questions. I wonder. Never mind. I won't say it. Ignore the sound in my background. I'm trying to look at him. Oh, she took her headset off and tricked me. She tricked me on purpose. You can barely hear him. Sorry, I'm getting Discord messages. Sorry.
So a lot of really good questions. Instead of, a lot of really good questions. I'm going to address the questions with the lawyers. We've got some more to go. It's probably going to take a few minutes to get us right up to the lunch hour. So we're not going to get your questions answered before the lunch hour. So what I'm going to do right now is excuse you for the lunch hour. I'll stay here with the lawyers. We'll work through your questions and whether or not we should answer or not. And then when you come back after lunch, we'll ask the questions of the witness. All right? So we'll get you out here a little early for lunch because we're not going to be able to get to these questions before noon anyway. I'm going to excuse the jury and I'll stay here with counsel. Be back at 1:30. Thank you. Yes, in the jury room. Thank you.
Please rise and get the floor.
The jury is absent and we'll continue with the questions. Does counsel want to do this at a bench conference or an open court? Any preference?
No preference, Your Honor.
I'll defer to you, Judge.
All right, let's get it. Let's do it as a bench conference. It's usually done up here at a sidebar at a bench conference out of the hearing of the public and the jury. So that's the way we'll do it here.
Good
All
enough
right.
for me. Whew. We made it. We made it day 14. Day 14. Can you believe that we made it to day 14? Now we just have one more day 14 to go. Breathe. Deep breath. All right, guys. Oh man. I was almost on time for Judge Fleischer's court, but I'm still late and they're still going to yell at me. No jokes on them. I can't get it to go right now. I have to set my recordings up. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for watching these Kelly trials with me. We're learning a lot, right? About backpacks and long grass and everything else. We have, I don't know, just a handful of videos to go. So we'll get there together. And my outro is going to play because it's set up now to automatically do that. So you can just go. You can just dip now. Bye, guys.
Got these lights that goes digital dreams through the screen. Her blue eyes gleam. Wicked humor, sharp as a knife. Her stream sparks electric light. Late night when the world sleeps, she's the friend that always keeps. Giggles roll like thunder loud. She stands out in any crowd. right. Even when my world turns gray, with a giggle, she lights the way. Kathy's laugh cuts through the gloom, eyes blue like a summer's bloom. Her humor dark and twisted, sharp, in a way there's no